proof that these players weren't total noobs. From the very start, I understood everything. I understood that things needed to be done quickly and was glad to see that at least my teammates weren't standing still. On the beautiful morning of day 4, Miss Erizabeth Attitude was the first to die. Luckily for her, I stumbled upon a church stocked with medical supplies. Very useful to have these early in the game. Returned to camp to revive the female, and she was grateful. Meet Miss Erizabeth Attitude. In those early days, we were still learning about each other, even through seemingly trivial conversations. On day 7, Clever Boy was injured. I found Clever Boy surrounded by wolves, but I managed to get him back on his feet, and he was grateful. Meet Clever Boy. It was obvious at this point that the only one working on the fire was me. Seeing that my teammates weren't helping, I sat down to think and decided to raid the Stronghold on my own. I didn't know it yet, but this would mark the beginning of a very long drama. I cleared the Stronghold while my teammates were doing something, I guess. On day 18, and after having raided the Stronghold, the fire was now fully upgraded. Miss Erizabeth Attitude perished that morning from starvation. Unable to thank me, Miss Erizabeth Attitude quickly ran away. Some days later, while gathering wood, I realized I hadn't been reviving my teammates every 10 seconds, and it made me happy. Seeing that no one was building the base, I decided to take matters into my own hands. Everyone was amazed and excited about it. Miss Erizabeth Attitude kept questioning my ability to build a perfect base, while everyone wanted to raid the Stronghold. It was decided we would all raid the Stronghold together. Things were going great. Everyone seemed to know what they were doing. That was until tragedy struck. Clever Boy was fatally shot with an arrow.
Clever Boy!
I retrieved Clever Boy and patched him up. This is Asteroid Boy, by the way. He holds a secret. Miss Erizabeth Attitude had fallen too. Asteroid Boy and Miss Erizabeth decided to abandon us at the Stronghold and return to camp. Sadly, Clever Boy was down again. I spent all night fighting the cultists on my own, and in the morning Miss Erizabeth came to revive Clever Boy. After I had been working so hard for days to clear the Stronghold by myself, Miss Erizabeth Attitude decided to claim the chest. Poor Clever Boy was down again. From that day onward, Miss Erizabeth would argue and complain non-stop. The moment I cleared the Stronghold, Clever Boy tried to grab the ruby chest for himself, but unfortunately, he wasn't fast enough. Once back at camp, Miss Erizabeth's attitude continued being combative and argumentative. Self-entitlement is a very real thing, and it can't be tolerated. Miss Erizabeth died of tantrum, while Clever Boy cleverly agreed with me. But just because someone isn't being quote-unquote nice, it doesn't mean they shouldn't play the game. So naturally, I revived Miss Erizabeth's attitude, but her ugly attitude would continue for many more days. Miss Erizabeth's attitude continued arguing for hours. I could take no more. With my heart shattered by my teammates, I was left with no choice but to leave the camp behind. They couldn't even manage to keep the campfire alive. The campfire I worked so hard to upgrade. Miss Erizabeth's attitude was of course dead again. And poor Clever Boy followed her to the grave. Unbelievably, that morning marked our 100th day in the forest, and I couldn't stop wondering why I had left the cult only to end up dealing with campers again. Clever Boy, who had been somewhat kind, politely asked for help, so I revived him. Clever Boy was happy. Life deep in the forest suited me well, far from the camp. Yet as I fished in peace, Astro Boy pleaded for my return, and seeing how much they needed me, I chose to go back. Astro Boy, grateful that I had revived him, now pledged his loyalty to me. I returned to camp, where much needed to be done. The fire in particular demanded constant attention. Because of her stubborn attitude, Miss Erizabeth's attitude wouldn't even let me tend to her wounds. We were all ready for a fresh start and willing to put our differences behind us. Everyone except Miss Erizabeth's attitude. As I worked on the fire, Astro Boy was no dead for some reason. I politely asked Miss Erizabeth to hand me Astro Boy's body so I could revive him.
You calling, boy? Wait.
That was the unmistakable sound of Miss Erizabeth's attitude crying for help.
Drop me. Chill.
Even Clever Boy was now thoroughly irritated as he vigorously tossed Miss Attitude. Miss Erizabeth was 100% attitude and 100% dead. She had an issue even with my keyboard.
Oh, Elizabeth.
The poor thing had lost its limbs. Clever Boy was vicious. I politely asked Astro Boy for her body so I could revive her.
Wait, will you revive her?
Yet Miss Erizabeth's attitude stubbornly resisted, her pride getting in the way.
Hey. Erizabeth.
Yes, her name was Erizabeth, and her attitude was larger than life. She argued over every single thing I said and shamelessly embraced her own arrogance. Clever Boy was viciously clever yet again.
No. Hell no. Dog, he's my cousin.
Astro Boy had finally revealed his secret. Miss Erizabeth's attitude was his cousin. With the fire out, both Clever Boy and Astro Boy succumbed. Though everyone was gone and I shed a few tears, I couldn't let go of hope for them. Miss Erizabeth's attitude had finally agreed to behave, even if she was still wrestling with her stubborn ways. After several days of searching, I had finally gathered enough bandages to revive them all. At last, Miss Erizabeth's attitude honored her word and displayed genuine gratitude. I made sure everyone returned safely to camp, but sadly Clever Boy got lost in the woods, and we never saw him again. For the first time, everyone survived the cultists that night. In the morning, I worked hard to rekindle the fire and prepare the camp so my newfound friends could survive for many days. I shared a few peaceful moments fishing with Miss Erizabeth, though sadly our time together was far too brief. Sure, Miss Erizabeth was still weak, but her attitude had changed. My work here was done. Miss Erizabeth had become a new person. Astro Boy's secret was finally out, and Clever Boy was lost to the woods. With a heavy, aching heart, I dropped my belongings and whispered my goodbyes, knowing this chapter of our lives had come to an end.